in these difficult times, James, where obviously you've got a business, you've got people out there selling the maps all over the world now, which is fantastic. You must have experienced them having to change their business models. And we've written some books. How can our books, the book I wrote with you, how can that help the mappers going forwards with their businesses?
Well, you know, actually, this is a really great question. And I think, and I'm going to make a general point here, writing books is one of the single most important things that any coach, consultant or trainer can do. And the reason why it's so important is because the word author is linked to the word authority. So as soon as you have a book out, as you and I do, Steve, Mapping Motivation for Engagement, we become authorities. And so this links into what Jay Abrahams, the great American marketing guru, talked about when he says, you know, what you need to do in your business is, or one strategy is, it's not for every business, but in our business, it's absolutely true, is you need to become preeminent. So preeminence is about actually standing above. You know, you've got a range of hills, for example, but Mount Everest is preeminent. It's taller than K2. It's the biggest mountain. And so we talk about it more. And Armstrong was the first person on the moon. Who was the third person? We can't really remember. But we
Collins.
we can remember, but we can remember the first person. So to be preeminent is really important. So this writing of books, whether you can write or not, by the way, I mean, as it happens, we can write, Steve, but there are people who they can't write. Well, there's plenty of options they've got to get people to help them write books.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, there's absolute loads of options to do it. So there's no excuse if you genuinely are an expert. Because that's what this is about, by the way. In talking about motivation, of course, expert motivator. We want to establish that we are experts in our field. And I think that's such an important thing to do, because when the chips are down, who is anybody going to go to when they think, well, I need somebody who can help me with this team problem, or this leadership problem, or this communication problem? They want to go to the expert. And in fact, you know, I think one thing that people in everyday life don't realize enough of, I'm sorry to go on a bit here, but it's quite important. It's like, you know, who wants to go and have a third-rate doctor?
Yeah.
Who wants to have an average dentist?
Yeah.
When you start thinking about you know, your own life, but people just register with a practice and say, oh, that's my doctor. And they don't think, actually, I already want not the top 20% of a doctor. I want the 20%. I want somebody in the top 4%. If somebody's going to be looking at me and it's my health or my mouth, my dentistry, I want the top person.
Well, you're going to go to Harley Street, aren't you?
You're going to go somewhere important.
Exactly.
You know, with somebody who's really good. So I think this applies. You know, restaurant. We don't want to go to an average restaurant. We want to go to an outstanding restaurant. And in fact, usually you find that actually it doesn't charge a lot more often than the average one.
And it's not often about the food, it's about the experience.
It's about the experience.
The sizzle, not the steak.
Oh, absolutely. So we, in terms of our community, the MAPS community, you know, my first piece of advice would be, you know, yes, absolutely, get a book out. You know, and some, you're one, Kate Turner's recently had a book out. There are various people bringing books out to show that they've got expertise in certain areas, and this puts them ahead, preeminent, vis-a-vis other people. I think it's such an important point.
And I can endorse that for anybody who's looking at this right now, might be struggling with their business. If you can't write a book, then I would suggest you write articles for magazines, because that enables you to be in the front and fore. Get on forums. You know, through COVID, I ran Motivational Power Hour, for example. So had people coming on and we spoke about motivation, its importance and how it's going to help. And the opportunity for right now is fantastic for motivational mappers. And I'll tell you why. Because every business has had to pivot and change, and therefore they've got new leadership teams. They probably furloughed staff, they've had staff that left, so there's probably a down energy in the business. They're bringing the new in. And right when you bring the new in, that's the time to look at energizing your business and energizing your leadership teams.
Oh, Steve, I love it.
And this is the time.
And this is where, you know, sorry about this, but our book, Steve, because you're now talking about recruitment. The world's number one, which we cite fully in here, all the information about it all, but in brief, the world's number one motivation expert, Lou Adler, the American Lou Adler, you know, basically has got a whole process by which you get the right candidate when you're recruiting. The number one factor in his system is you need to employ high energy people. Hang on, high energy people. What are we talking about? Motivated people. Now, to do that, he has a very simple type of question. The question runs something like, tell me about something that you've achieved in your current role. Now that's a great question, because if you've achieved anything, you will of course have had to have energy to do it. Yeah. But we in Motivational Maps have got a much more sophisticated way of doing that. The candidates have pre-done the map, and then based upon what their profile is, we ask a question which establishes energy based upon their top motivator. And how to do that is explained in our book. So we can be much more accurate even than we feel the world's leading expert could be, because this is really precise. We've got the language, we've got the metric.
It's so true. Recruit on attitude and then train. You can have the best skills in the world, but the poorest attitude. If we take attitude and say motivation, recruit the right motivation with the right skills, and you're going to have a winner. But if not, recruit the person with motivation and then train them, because they will want the training and they'll embrace it.
Absolutely.
So, and then you can build your leadership team out, and you can look at the conflicts and motivations and see the synergies instead of the conflicts, and build a really robust team that can take your business forward in these difficult times.
Well, I'm going to add one more thing to that, because Lex said to us, some words of encouragement to our communities. And I think one word of encouragement is, well, keep going, that there's the market out there. It's going to grow and expand. It's all happening now. Yeah. But don't forget, these resource books like this are full of, how many of our coaches or how many of our consultants actually do advise their MDs or their FDs on, say, recruitment. There's a whole methodology in here where they can bring another dimension to their advice, their counsel, their offerings to the client, which perhaps they hadn't thought of using.
Yeah.
They're doing coaching and it's one-to-one, it's personal development, but they're not actually using it from the point of view of the whole recruitment issue, which is now about to plague all these companies.
Yeah, and I agree. I think, motivation, if you look at what's going on now, we live in a disruptive world, it's not going to change. Motivational Maps is a change tool. The tools you need now are motivation. How do you keep motivation high when there's constant disruption, constant change to your organization? You have to monitor it. If you want to keep your talent, you're going to lose talent if you're not careful.